Every era of performance has its lightning rod. That one machine that captures ambition, risk, and engineering obsession in equal measure. It is not just a product of metal and fuel. It is a statement about what speed can be when a company stops playing safe and starts chasing legends. In racing, that pursuit can define decades. It can turn privateer mechanics into factory heroes. It can reshape entire categories of competition. When a manufacturer finds that formula, the ripple spreads far beyond the track. Fans feel it. Riders idolize it. Engineers study it. Even rivals are forced to respond. This is the kind of story that changes how a brand is remembered and how performance itself is defined. Today, we are looking at one of those lightning rods. A machine that signaled the start of a new era in lightweight precision and two-stroke mastery. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives, and tell us in the comments which machine you want to see next. In 1989, the Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 arrived as a vivid reminder that racing DNA could be distilled into a road machine. The sport bike scene of the late 1980s was an arms race. Manufacturers pushed technology closer to what their factory teams used in Grand Prix competition. For Suzuki, the RGV250 VJ21 was more than a product. It was a declaration. The brand had spent years in the shadow of rivals who dominated the two-stroke quarter-liter class, but the VJ21 was engineered to reverse that dynamic. The motorcycle's very structure reflected a purpose-built design philosophy. At its heart was a 90-degree V-twin engine, compact and explosive in character, with Suzuki's advanced power control system adjusting exhaust timing for optimal torque and response. The chassis was a masterpiece of balance. An aluminum twin-spar frame kept weight low while ensuring stiffness under extreme lean angles. This layout, paired with a banana swing arm borrowed from the racing paddock, was more than aesthetic flair. It allowed the expansion chambers to tuck in tight and maintain ideal ground clearance. Every design decision served speed. Riders quickly realized that this was not a forgiving machine for casual cruising. It demanded precision, awareness, and respect. Yet those who learned its rhythm discovered one of the sharpest handling bikes of its time. The RGV250 VJ21's agility redefined expectations for what a 250 could do on public roads. Its arrival was also symbolic of a new kind of motorcycling culture emerging from Japan, where young riders valued race technology, lightweight control, and accessible performance over brute engine size. The RGV250 VJ21 tapped into that energy perfectly. Even in its home market, it became a status symbol among enthusiasts who viewed it as the closest legal experience to piloting a Grand Prix machine. In Europe and Australia, where the grey import market thrived, the VJ21 became an underground legend. Dealers could not keep them in stock, and tuning shops raced to modify jetting, exhausts, and suspension settings to unlock every bit of its potential. Suzuki's engineers, meanwhile, watched closely. The VJ21 was as much an experiment in data gathering as it was a consumer product. It allowed the factory to test new materials, refine its electronics, and simulate GP-style handling in real-world use. This approach would feed directly into Suzuki's racing program. By translating road feedback into competitive intelligence, the brand was building a virtuous cycle between production and performance. But that balance was delicate. The VJ21's aggressive setup could punish mistakes. The power band hit hard at higher revs, requiring riders to keep the engine screaming just below its limit. The light front end and short wheelbase made wheel lift common under full throttle, and inexperienced hands found themselves quickly outmatched. Yet, in skilled control, the reward was total harmony. The bike seemed to anticipate its rider's intent. Suzuki's attention to geometry and mass centralization paid off with almost telepathic steering response. The VJ21 also marked a turning point for two-stroke engineering. It arrived just as emissions regulations were tightening and four-strokes were beginning to dominate larger categories. Suzuki knew the two-strokes days in mainstream production were numbered, so the VJ21 became both a celebration and an evolution of the format. It proved that efficiency and explosiveness could coexist if the engineering was precise enough. Behind its raw performance lay subtle innovation. The SAPC system, a small but crucial electronic module, monitored revs and adjusted the power valve to flatten the torque curve. This allowed Suzuki to maintain strong mid-range pull while preserving the high-end rush that two-stroke fans loved. The result was a smoother, more usable machine, still capable of thrilling sprints down straights or flicking effortlessly through switchbacks. It was the ultimate road racer replica for its generation. The bike's launch created a ripple effect. Enthusiasts debated whether this was the future of sport riding or a high-strung track weapon disguised for the street. The truth sat somewhere between. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 was both a precision tool and a cultural catalyst, proving that smaller capacity machines could offer deeper connection and excitement than raw power alone. Every design cue, from its twin exhausts to its aerodynamic fairings, served as a reminder of Suzuki's racing ambition. It was not a bike built to be easy. It was built to be right. The VJ21 redefined how performance was measured in its class and forced the industry to rethink what lightweight design could achieve. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 stood at the center of a rapidly changing landscape. By 1989, the pace of technological progress in motorcycle engineering was breathtaking, and Suzuki's entry reflected a new maturity in how manufacturers approached performance. Rather than chasing raw horsepower numbers, the RGV250 VJ21 aimed for an equilibrium between agility, precision, and rider feedback. It was designed as a holistic machine, where engine, chassis, and aerodynamics functioned as one cohesive system. This approach mirrored the design ethos seen in top-tier racing. Engineering that valued total balance over isolated brilliance. Beneath its sharp fairing, the RGV250 VJ21's 249 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled V-twin was a marvel of compact packaging. Suzuki's engineers borrowed heavily from their factory race bikes, adopting reed valve induction and an electronically controlled exhaust system that allowed the engine to breathe and respond with uncanny smoothness. With roughly 58 horsepower on tap and a dry weight just over 282 pounds, the power-to-weight ratio was stunning for its class. The result was instantaneous throttle response and an uncanny sense of lightness. Riders often describe the experience as if the machine disappeared beneath them, leaving only motion and instinct. That sensation was the product of Suzuki's chassis philosophy. The aluminum twin-spar frame, rigid yet forgiving, was paired with a suspension tuned to provide precision at the edge of traction. Front-end feedback was direct. Every pebble and camber communicated through the bars. The rear suspension, aided by the braced swing arm, provided stability without dulling the feedback. For racers stepping down from 500 cubic centimeters beasts or young riders dreaming of factory-level control, the VJ21 felt transformative. It was as if Suzuki had distilled the language of racing into something anyone could speak. Yet, that precision also meant exposure. There was no room for laziness, no comfort zone. The bike's rewards were proportional to a rider's skill and nerve. This purity of experience defined its reputation. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 was not about forgiveness. It was about connection. Suzuki's designers understood that and embraced it fully. They even shaped the aerodynamics around rider ergonomics, optimizing airflow for a tucked position. The fairing was narrow, the tank sculpted for grip, and the clip-ons placed for maximum control in fast direction changes. The sound, a crisp, high-pitched wail that built into a metallic crescendo, became part of the ritual. It was the soundtrack of two-stroke racing culture. For engineers, the VJ21 was a laboratory. Suzuki tested new materials, like lightweight castings and high-tolerance bearings, that would later appear in factory prototypes. Every RGV on the street was a moving testbed. Suzuki learned how small changes in geometry affected stability under braking, how power delivery translated to tire wear, and how riders adapted to electronic control systems that were still new to the consumer market. These insights flowed back into the factory team, influencing development of the 250 cubic centimeters GP bikes and even larger racing projects. What emerged from this feedback loop was a deeper understanding of dynamic behavior, a foundation for the handling characteristics that became synonymous with Suzuki's racing identity. In this way, the RGV250 VJ21 was more than a consumer product. It was an ecosystem. It unified fans, racers, and engineers under a shared pursuit of balance. The culture that surrounded it grew quickly. Enthusiasts customized their machines with racing bodywork, tuned exhausts, and lightweight wheels. Every modification became a statement about individuality within the strict limits of precision engineering. Suzuki's official racing program took notice, promoting track-day support and parts availability that allowed riders to experience authentic competition setups. This blending of factory technology and grassroots enthusiasm created a loyal following that endures today. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the RGV250 VJ21 also reflected Japan's economic and cultural confidence. The nation's manufacturers were exporting not only machines but philosophies: attention to detail, mechanical purity, and a belief that excellence should be accessible. The RGV embodied those ideals. It wasn't designed to impress in a showroom. It was built to inspire on a winding road or a local circuit. Each detail, from the crisp throttle response to the distinctive blue and white livery, served as a promise that performance could be art. But beneath the glory, the motorcycle also revealed the limits of the two-stroke era. Regulations were tightening, and the very emission systems that kept the VJ21 compliant were signs of its approaching sunset. Suzuki's engineers faced the paradox of perfecting a technology that was on borrowed time. Still, rather than dilute the spirit, they refined it. The VJ21 became a transitional figure, a link between raw analog ferocity and the more refined, electronically managed machines that would follow. It taught Suzuki how to merge human instinct with digital precision, a lesson that defined its future racing dominance. When viewed today, the RGV250 VJ21 stands as a time capsule of that transition. Its engineering still feels alive, its aesthetics timeless. The way it translated every rider input into immediate feedback remains unmatched by many modern machines. In every sense, it was an education in motion. A bike that rewarded mastery and punished complacency, not out of cruelty but out of honesty. That is why it continues to fascinate. It represents a moment when technology and emotion met perfectly at 12,000 revolutions per minute. The legacy of the Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 reaches far beyond its production years. By the early 1990s, the model had already begun influencing the next generation of Suzuki's race machines, shaping how the company thought about agility, responsiveness, and rider connection. The lessons learned from the VJ21's development filtered into the track in subtle but powerful ways. Engineers who refined the VJ21's chassis geometry later applied those same principles to the RGV250's racing successors, and eventually to Suzuki's Grand Prix program. The result was a decade of innovation that reinforced the brand's reputation for precision handling. The VJ21 became a blueprint for the perfect intersection between road and race. Its architecture inspired an entire lineage, each iteration slightly sharper, lighter, and more focused. Suzuki understood that success in the 250 cubic centimeters class wasn't just about winning trophies. It was about defining how a motorcycle should feel. The tactile quality that riders described, the seamless connection between input and reaction, was no accident. It was the product of relentless experimentation that began with the VJ21. Riders in professional series found that the bike's traits translated beautifully into competitive environments. It cornered with almost instinctive accuracy, responded instantly to throttle changes, and maintained remarkable composure under braking. These were not isolated virtues. They were the essence of Suzuki's design philosophy taking root. Over time, that DNA appeared in every corner of Suzuki's performance lineup. Even when two-strokes faded from mainstream production, their spirit lived on in the way modern Suzuki sport bikes balanced control and feedback. The RGV250 VJ21 taught engineers the value of harmony between mechanical and human performance, a lesson that shaped everything from chassis stiffness ratios to throttle mapping. Beyond engineering, the VJ21 also left a cultural mark. It became an emblem of purity in an increasingly complex industry. As motorcycles evolved toward more electronics and rider aids, enthusiasts began to look back on the VJ21 as a symbol of unfiltered experience. Its simplicity, carburetors, cables, analog gauges, embodied a kind of authenticity that modern riders sometimes miss. Owning one today is more than nostalgia. It's participation in a heritage of craftsmanship and risk-taking. Collectors seek out clean examples not only for their rarity but for what they represent. The final flourish of an era when riding skill and mechanical understanding were inseparable. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 occupies a special place in this story because it captured that essence without compromise. Its beauty lies in its honesty. The engine doesn't hide behind software. The chassis doesn't mask its behavior with sensors. Every motion, every sound, every pulse of the crankshaft is real. In a sense, it teaches a discipline. How to listen, how to adapt, how to anticipate. Riders who learned on this machine often describe it as a teacher, one that rewarded precision and punished carelessness with equal fairness. That quality forged better riders and inspired Suzuki's engineers to keep pursuing machines that respected the human element. Historically, the VJ21 also played a role in re-establishing Suzuki's confidence. The brand had faced periods of inconsistency in racing, and this machine marked a turning point. The data it generated, both from private riders and professional teams, allowed Suzuki to refine their GP strategy. Within a few short years, that foundation contributed to victories that cemented Suzuki's dominance in 250 cubic centimeters and 500 cubic centimeters racing. The RGV platform became synonymous with competitive excellence, but the roots of that success can be traced directly to the VJ21's debut year. The motorcycle's balance of speed, stability, and adaptability gave Suzuki a reference point that informed every project afterward. Even as the world moved toward four-stroke technology, the lessons of mass centralization, throttle feel, and chassis feedback endured. Engineers referenced those principles while developing later Supersport and MotoGP bikes. This continuity explains why many veteran racers and engineers still cite the VJ21 as a pivotal project. It wasn't just a bike that performed well. It was a benchmark for how to think about performance. For fans, the story of the RGV250 VJ21 is one of respect. It is the story of a company betting on precision at a time when others chased raw power. It is the story of an era when two-strokes ruled the circuits, and every advancement came from human ingenuity rather than digital assistance. The VJ21 was a messenger from that age, a reminder that perfection often lies in simplicity. Decades later, its influence can still be felt in how Suzuki approaches rider engagement. The feedback loops, the sensitivity of control, the seamless integration between chassis and engine, all trace their lineage to that 1989 design. And for those who have experienced it, the memory remains vivid. The sharp bite of the power band, the weightless lean into a corner, and the sense that for a few perfect seconds, machine and human move as one. That feeling is the RGV250 VJ21's true legacy. A testament to what happens when engineering ambition meets pure intent. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 endures as one of the purest expressions of racing philosophy ever released for public roads. More than 3 decades later, it remains a reference point for how a motorcycle can feel alive in the rider's hands. Its legacy is not only mechanical but emotional. It represents a time when performance was pursued with unfiltered passion and every component existed for one purpose: connection. The RGV250 VJ21 was never about convenience or comfort. It was about fidelity, translating every ounce of feedback from the tires, the throttle, and the suspension directly into the rider's senses. That honesty built a cult following that persists across continents. Enthusiasts continue to rebuild, restore, and ride these machines because they embody a philosophy that modern motorcycles rarely replicate. The RGV250 VJ21 is not a museum piece. It is a living link to the era that defined Suzuki's competitive DNA. When Suzuki engineers crafted its aluminum frame, they created more than a structure. They created a language of balance that carried through to later champions on world circuits. When they tuned its 90-degree V-twin engine, they proved that compact displacement could deliver excitement equal to much larger machines. And when they optimized its aerodynamic bodywork, they forged an identity recognized instantly on the track and on the street. Each of these elements contributed to Suzuki's rise through the 1990s, when lessons from the VJ21 evolved into a racing dynasty. Riders like Kevin Schwantz would later benefit from the precision mindset that began with this very machine. The ripple effect of that engineering culture continues to this day, visible in how Suzuki approaches handling, ergonomics, and rider engagement across its entire lineup. For collectors, the VJ21 has become a touchstone. It marks the dividing line between analog purity and the digital sophistication that followed. Its mechanical rhythm demands involvement. Its maintenance requires knowledge and patience. Owning one is less about possession and more about participation in a legacy that values craftsmanship and skill. It invites riders to become caretakers of history, preserving not just a motorcycle but a mindset. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 story also reminds us that greatness often arrives quietly, in the form of innovation that only time can fully appreciate. When new, it was celebrated for its speed and precision. Now, it is revered for its authenticity and purpose. That evolution in perception underscores what makes it timeless. The VJ21 doesn't rely on nostalgia. It endures because it remains relevant to how people define connection in motorcycling. Every startup, every sharp corner, every echo of its two-stroke rhythm carries a sense of heritage. It tells the story of when engineers design not by algorithm but by intuition, guided by feel and feedback rather than simulations. That is why the RGV250 VJ21 continues to inspire both riders and designers. It shows that innovation is not only about technology. It is about understanding the relationship between machine and human, between balance and boldness. As we reflect on this two-stroke masterpiece, its importance becomes clear. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ21 was not just a product of its time. It shaped the time that followed. It transformed Suzuki from a contender into a benchmark of control and confidence. Its impact is visible in every motorcycle that prioritizes feedback over brute force. And its influence endures wherever riders chase the perfect line, trusting their instincts and their machine in equal measure. In the story of performance, few names resonate with such clarity. The RGV250 VJ21 stands as proof that when engineering excellence and rider passion converge, the result is not merely a motorcycle. It is a legacy that never stops moving.